Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. So this is the last day of our Funded Trader webinar series. It's been a great series. We had a whole host of guys going through how they are trading and using their evaluation and funded accounts in these services, and how they trade differently because of it. A little bit of insight on the industry, what they think of it, how uh, the whole system kind of works. Today we have Thor. So next slide, Thor. Oh, risk disclosure. All Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. In the risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and digital currencies involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And next one. Okay, a bit of news, guys. As you know, our beta programs in here, we have this new multi-account add-on that allows you to trade with these funded trading accounts from one chart in Bookmap. Suppose you're using one of the services and you have 20 accounts with that service. You can spit or duplicate all of those trades over to those other accounts from just one trade. So if you want access to that or the Market Pulse Pace of Tape or the Market Pulse Web, then email us at beta@bookmap.com. We also have our Blue Jacket competition and our Bookmap Academy. You can come over to the website and check that stuff out. So next slide. And voila. All right. Today we have Thor, and he's going to go through his tips and tricks on how he became a funded trader, how his students became funded, how they use it, how he recommends using it, and also kind of insights on the industry in general. So really looking forward to it, Thor. Welcome, and take it away, man.
All right. Thank you so much, Bruce. Also, thank you to Dan for all the hard work getting set up for this little thing. It's amazing the amount of behind the scenes that has to go on to make all of this stuff happen for everybody out there. So I certainly appreciate his efforts, as I'm sure we all do. My name is Thor Young. I am a professional trader. I'm also a moderator at the Bear Bull Traders trading community. I'm also the owner of Pivot Masters, which is an educational trading community where we teach specific trading concepts. You can find any of the information on either of those as websites. Looking forward. I'm also wrote a book on stock trading that uses my particular system, which is a complete day trading system, which you can find on Amazon. I've been a trader since a little bit before 2018, and I've been a full-time, consistently profitable trader for about the past 5 years, a little more. I really enjoy trading futures, although I also trade equities. I work with a lot of traders that range from small accounts to large accounts, and have a lot of fun doing that. I really enjoy coming into communities like this and trying to kind of share some general knowledge out there, and really make things work. So we'll kind of go through some different things today. I just to kind of give everyone a little introduction on today. I traded this morning already. I had one win and one loss this morning. I actually took a short on Tesla when it came up to this is a cam level R3 here, and I went short. Bookmap at the time was actually showing a bit of an order void to the top side, which let me pull here. You can actually see here, as we were pushing up to these orders, we were lacking orders. See how they built the limits on later, right? We were lacking orders, so it didn't look like we had what we needed to go up to this block, but we had plenty of limits to the downside, so I went ahead and shorted. When it squeezed, I thought we were going to hold up again, and sure enough, I got in, and just a little bit too early on this one, but going to call it a day on the trading since I have to do a presentation, obviously, but still, I risk a couple $100 per trade, $250 on this one, actually. So I made $1,000 on this trade, lost $250 on this one. So I'm going to close out the day making $750 today, which is not a bad day considering I went 50-50, right? So one of the things that you know, we talk about as we're getting into this whole funded thing. And for anyone that's in Bookmap in here listening right now in the audience, you know, there is a chat tab in here. So as I'm going through this, if you have particular questions or things you would like to know outside, I don't know everything about funded accounts, but I've been in and out of, you know, 3 or 4 different funded brokers as an educational journey. And I have multiple mentees that I've worked with that have all used that. And just to kind of show that, you know, I wanted to show you, here is a screenshot of, you can see here one of my mentees, Bram, getting funded by TopStep. You can also see here is an example. This is actually showing me, my legal first name. Middle name is Thor, which is what I go by. Legal first name is Lawrence. So you can see here is you know, me getting funded through one, and that's that one also an email here showing that I've also gotten funded through Apex as well. So I wanted to go through there and talk a little bit about those various things for everybody, and then we'll get into some more fun. So first off, as we approach this, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this for everybody, and I wanted to approach this in the concepts of kind of a pros and cons kind of concept. So when we're talking about pros and cons here, I'm talking about funded accounts, right? So now when we're talking about funded accounts, it's really, really important to actually understand what a funded account actually is, right? So I'm going to start with that, right? And if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to put them in. What a funded account actually is a, for a lack of a better concept, I would like you to think about maybe, and you know, I don't know how the other guys have presented this, obviously I didn't watch all of them. I would like to think of you to think about this as the trading version of online poker. You can, you know, where gambling's allowed. If you go into online poker, when you sign up for playing poker and you put $10 in for the poker match, what ends up happening is those $10 through all the varied participants creates a pool, right? And the vast minority will win that pool while the vast majority will lose. And this allows the pool to sustain the winnings of the vast minority while the vast majority fund the pool, right? So a funded account, right? When you're trading a funded account, you're technically just trading in sim. And when you win, the money you're getting paid out is money that is getting paid out from you from a profit pool, right? Which is why when you're trading a funded account, you don't really have to fill out any paperwork to become like a professional trader, right? It's why they can pay you out and you can take the earnings 1090, right? It's why all of these other things can happen, right? Because you're not actually trading, right? So this is very important to know. So when you sign up for most of your funded trading accounts, you're never really going to ever trade with somebody else's money. You're going to literally really kind of become a professional poker player, more so, where instead of trading stocks on the stock market or futures on the futures market, you're actually more so trading in just an evaluation account or just a sim account where if you win, they happen to pay you out. Now, they do pay you out, just like online poker does pay you out, right? So I'm not saying there's not money to be made there, but it is really important for you to understand the environment in which you're participating. So a lot of these funded accounts, when you set them up, are very, very handy. And I'm going to kind of go through a list of some pros that go with them and a list of some cons that go with them, right? So to start off at first as a pro is as soon as you sign up for a funded account, you immediately get access, right, to a funded trading account, right? So pro, right, is you immediately get data, right off the gate. Let's see here. My pen is not working now. Great. Hold on. Oh, Epic. Why would you do this to me? It knew I was presenting. All right. Now I have to wait for it to restart. So sorry. One sec. There we go. All right. So the first thing you get is data. Right, the first thing you're going to get out of signing up for a funded account is you're going to instantly get access to data. You're going to instantly get access to a platform, whatever the platform it is that they offer, and the ability to track your trades, use evaluation counts to see your progress. They put in lots of, there's lots of rule structure in place to really make sure that you're not doing anything too reckless with your trading. Right? These are all things that are really, really great about using a funded trading program, right? As soon as you get in and you get started, you immediately, within just a few minutes, are up and running, right? Where if you're trying to open up a private account, like, or a retail account, you've got to go through a broker, you got to find the broker, you got to apply, assuming they're taking new retail accounts, which most are. You then have to fund, depending on your location. If you're in the States, you have to meet PDT, right? If you want to trade equities, and you want to get good leverage and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that is going to go into getting a retail account set up that you can avoid by going into a funded account. So, and that's really awesome. Now, personally, because of getting that data, right, and being able to look at funded accounts like that, right, you get this really fun thing they call, which is an eval account. Right. And I want to talk a little bit about eval accounts, right? Eval accounts are similar to a sim account, right? But once you have your eval account, the eval account actually tracks your metrics based upon their algorithm, and it makes sure you don't do anything that is not appropriate. Right now, when I say not appropriate, what's that mean? Well, that's the tricky part, right? And I'm going to talk about some cons in there about the rules and stuff in a second, but you do need to go through and make sure you understand the rules and make sure what counts for passing or not passing an eval account. Now, this is going to be much more difficult than just opening your own account, obviously, because when you open your own account, there are no rules. But if you're a brand new trader, maybe you want some rules. You know what I mean? So my number 2 that I really use is what I call being a bridge, right? So the main thing that really is helpful with these accounts, right, is that these accounts can be used as a bridge between sim and going live, right? So a lot of the times, one of the major inherent issues with most of the traders that I work with is not actually their ability to read charts. It's not actually their ability to isolate and take trades. It's actually behavioral slippage, right? Alpha Minds 101, right? The great Mr. Goldstein. You have to kind of keep in mind that behavioral slippage isn't the money you lose. It's the money you never make, right? It's all of these little things that go in that add up, and over time, right, end up dwindling your profits. So with a proper evaluation account where you can really track those metrics and you have to meet certain goals and standards, you can really tell if you're making it or not making it. And that allows you to bridge that gap between maybe going sim and going live. Now, with that being the gap, I think this is actually the best way to utilize a funded account right now. And I'm not talking about the live accounts for like Top Step, for instance. I'm talking about the funded account, right? When you're looking at a funded account, right, as you're making money in your funded account, I would recommend taking a small amount of that and utilizing it to save up for funding your retail account, right? That's one of the greatest things you can do while you're in these funded programs and you're winning off the online poker pool. Why not take those winnings and use those to create an account that will actually have longevity and that you can actually utilize to grow your wealth, right? One of the cons I will bring up is when you're trading with somebody else's account, you're building, you're not building your wealth directly. So you got to take that money out, your earnings, and you got to take that off and put that somewhere and do something with it, right? But if you're doing it right, you can use your winnings to fund a retail account. Now, one of the few equity funded accounts out there that I'm aware of is the funded account that's offered through Bear Bull Traders. Bear Bull Traders, which is obviously I'm a moderator for, Bear Bull Traders does have a funded account that allows you to trade equities. Now, that's very unusual. Most of the funded accounts that you'll come across are mostly all geared towards futures. But Bear Bull Traders has one that's based towards equities, and it uses an IB, Interactive Brokers, and DOS relationship in order to put that all together. That comes with all the data, all the same stuff as the other ones do, right? But very genuinely, BBT will say that this is an educational account and really is not there with the intention that this is going to be your now permanent source of income. That ideally, when you're using one of these, you're going to use this as a tool to help you get into your own retail account someday, or maybe even qualify for a proprietary account someday, right? So now another big pro to this, which I really, really like, is the money, right? When you open up a funded trading account, you can get access to varying, if not massive, amounts of buying power for an incredibly low monthly cost, right? So certain ones out there like Apex, for instance, you know what I mean? With their, I think they normally run like a Save 80 promo or something like that. It's 120, but then it ends up only being like $35 or something like that. And you can get 100K worth of buying power for futures, and you can go and you can do that. And you're only had to pay the 35 to 40 bucks a month. Now, the other part about that, right, is because of that, you're going to come with a lot less emotional issue, right? Less emotional damage when you're trading on an evaluation or a funded account versus actually trading your own account. And there's less financial risk, right? While you're using one of these funded accounts to bridge sim to live, you're in a position where the most you're really going to lose if you blow that account up is $35, right? Where where in a real account, your whole account's the most you can blow up, right? Especially if you're not using good risk metrics. So, and then lastly, getting support from staff and community. Most of these funded brokers do offer support. They do offer some mentoring in some of them. They offer a lot of community support. Their staff has, many of them have risk management staff on deck, right? So they're there to help you, in many ways, as far as being able to kind of keep you away from those things. Now, some cons here on this whole process, right? So some cons to it is the rules for trading in a funded account are very, very similar to trading for a proprietary firm, right? So now I want to bring this to Top Step Live, right? So there's been a lot of new talk because Top Step Live is available now. So for those of you who are not aware of Top Step Live, one of the big critiques that everyone has had is, well, an evaluation account is a fake account. It's not like a real account. It's like online poker. So Top Step has actually an answer for that. Top Step has created their own proprietary, right? So if you're trading in a Top Step funded account and you've been doing well in it, you may be invited or eligible to apply for one of their live accounts. Right now, if you get a live account, this is like getting into Peak Capital or getting into SMB, into one of these large proprietary firms. You now are actually going to trade with other people's money, but there's going to be a big difference here, right? You're going to have to sign some pretty serious paperwork, right? You also, there's going to be some seriously stringent risk management. You are now going to definitely have risk managers that are, breathing down your neck quite a bit. And then you're going to have a lot of other things that, because of that, are going to naturally make things a lot more difficult. So one of those being, they won't allow you to trade a live and a funded account simultaneously, right? One of the advantages, right, to trading in an evaluation account, as many of you have probably experienced, is copy trading. Right, where you can go out on many websites, and one in particular, you can find the link if you Google. I don't have it on the top of my head, but you can actually go to a website and you can download a program, right? And that program links in your accounts, and then when you send an account, like for instance, if you're using Ninja, you can hit an order, and that order will take that order and it will copy it across 3 or 4 of your accounts, right? So you can take, and instead of risking $200 risk per trade per, on a singular account, you could risk $50 risk per account and spread it across 4 different accounts, right? So your potential to make money is still there, but your potential for downward draw is spread out across multiple accounts, which helps you avoid things like trailing thresholds, right? Trailing thresholds are a really big deal with funded and proprietary accounts, right? So for those of you who don't know what trailing thresholds are, a trailing threshold is once you make a certain amount of profit, you're not allowed to give profit back, right? So, and that's different depending on your proprietary. Some of them, it's like 50%, right? So if you make $10,000 in one day and lose $5,000 the next day, you could lock your account out, right? If you made $5,000 during the day, but your trailing threshold is $3,000, and then you end up positive $1,500 for the day, you could still, oh, that's right, I forgot that. I've been playing around with the new Bookmap trading, because I actually just got that a couple of weeks ago. I'm goofing. I'm definitely getting into trading with Bookmap and looking at some of those things, and I can't wait to use that feature, right? So, and the copy trader, really does that. So you got to really worry about those kind of things. So, and that really gets me to my number one. So some of my main issues, and my number one is what I call funding insecurity, right? So one of the biggest and most scary things I think about going through a proprietary or going through a funded is what I call funding insecurity, right? Which is there's no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee of funding in the future, right? So, and I'm going to throw out a name: fast track trading, right? Fast track trading was an apex and was a top step and is now no longer in existence, right? They had too many rule issues. They had traders that were actually ended up taking advantage of their system a little bit. And the company itself was not able to sustain, and they ended up closing, right? But this could happen with any one of your funded brokers. There is no guarantee to you that they're going to provide you your buying power, right? There is only a guarantee from you to them, right? So that you're going to pay for it, right? So in order to use it. So at any given time, you could have an entire system built around making so much money, and quite literally at any moment in time, you could receive an email that says, "We're so sorry, such and such of a company is no longer, doing their thing. Peace out. Have a good one." Right? So you got to be really careful about that. There's also, and on top of that, and I kind of was talking about the trailing threshold. If you have a day where you're trading, you're up $5,000, you end up closing your day at 1,500. You made $1,500 that day, but because you closed below your trailing threshold, your account gets suspended and your earnings don't get paid out, right? So when you violate your rules in a funded trading or in a proprietary, you forfeit your earnings, right? So and go through your fine rule. And I know this. I've had multiple traders in my circle that have happened. There's a trader that posted recently on Twitter that was talking about that very recently. Sorry, on X. I'm still too old, so I'm still calling it X. But let me pull over this example real quick. Hold on, where did it go? His name is Patrick Weiland, and you can see right here, Patrick Weiland, was in the middle of trading that day. He had made like almost 30 grand in profits. He had given about half of it, and they sent him a message saying he has to close his P&L above a certain amount. And if he doesn't, they're going to close his account out. They did close his account out, and he forfeited any of the earnings he already had in this account. Now, for the record, I will say, when I first read it, maybe he edited it. But so what I was going to say, what I am going to say is the reality is there was no fault at Top Steps for doing what they did, right? Top Step has rules in place, and those are rules that are in place that are put in place by their risk management team. And you sign paperwork saying that they have the ability and capacity to change the rules at any time they want, to enforce whatever rules they want at any time they want, right? So and then all of these other, yeah, I'm sure after he posted it on X, right, everything got worked out. But I guarantee if he didn't post it on X, it wouldn't have. But I mean, I've personally tried to get a payout from from an account, and I've had them give me, this was an Apex one, right? You know, and it had a little bit of a run on there, but I ended up getting it worked out, but it was a little frustrating. But with Top Step, I haven't had any issues with them. So, but I wanted to point out the main reason I'm saying that is when you become a funded proprietary trader, you're giving up something else, and that something else may be more important to you than anything else, which is your freedom, right? Your ability to govern, you know what I mean, your risk metrics, how you feel, right? If you're down $5,000 that day and you want to do that, you are, when you sign up for one of these things, you're basically going out and getting yourself a boss, right? So, and if you're going to go out and get risk managers, kind of like Patrick was saying in his thing, you know, you can't, you know, or what he was complaining, you really can't complain in that regard, because you're not trading with your money, you're trading with their money, right? So if you're going to do that, right, you need to understand that you're giving up some of those freedoms in order to do that. And because of that, you need to make sure you are one heck of a regimented trader, right? If you are prone to behavioral slippage, like bag holding, for instance, being, I would say, is probably the most detrimental to a funded account, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know if he would win, Tro, but that would be his decision to make. You know what I mean? That's the point. I'm not saying it's better. I risk 1R. I can tell you the amount of money I've lost on every single trade I've taken for the past 4 years, right? 1R. I use a fixed risk hotkey when I trade. I think trading and having that kind of loss is insane, right? Tro, I am by no means advocating against Top Step in this instance. I'm just making sure that everyone is aware of the pros and cons, right, of using a funded trader, right? So one of the pros was, like I said earlier, was that you have risk managers, right? And if you're not the world's greatest trader, especially, there's a lot in place to help you and help you evaluate yourself and get better, right? But you do lose the anonymity of saying, hey, I'm a pro trader. If I want to lose 10 grand that day going after something I feel really good about, you know, that's his decision. So if you're going to give up that, you just got to be understanding that when you give up that freedom, you can't expect to have it, right? And just be realistic about that. And I think if you are, you do better. And if not, if you're prone to behavioral slippage, which apparently he most likely was, then you can lose it. Now, the part that's the part that I don't love about it is that it forfeits your earnings, right? So if you have a rule violation, right, or like a buddy of mine, for instance, had one of his accounts go stale, right? He had 4 different accounts through this was actually through Top Step, right? And then his copy trader he was using stopped working on one of the accounts, and he didn't realize it because he doesn't check them every day. That account sat dormant for 2 weeks, and he had to forfeit the account and the earnings that was in the account, right? Because he violated a rule. He allowed the account to go stale, right? So, which again, lost the rule. You know what I mean? So I'm very, very big on rules. So so I'm not having an issue here. I don't blame them in any capacity for doing what they are doing. I'm just saying, if you're going to use them, it is significantly more tricky and complicated than you think so, because you got a boss now. You know what I mean? You got an employer, you got a funder, you got someone who gets to control what you do and you don't do, right? And you're going to give that up. You know what I mean? So yeah. Is it 1 month? So a month. So same diff. So yeah, so that's the main thing. You know what I mean? So now So as with the pros and the cons, for me personally, I have utilized an evaluation account and then got funded, as I showed you earlier, through Apex. I liked them fine. I liked Top Step better. So I still currently have a funded account through Top Step that I still currently use and get paid out through. So I'm very good at following rules and doing that. So I actually think funded accounts are fantastic. My recommendation would be to use your funded account to create a retail account, or go through a Top Step and work towards being a proprietary trader. But I agree, Wintro, 100%. It's nice to utilize it as a secondary revenue stream, right? Let's say you have a live account and you want to just make some extra money along with it. You know what I mean? This might be a good spot for you to pull in some extra stuff. Or let's say you're in equities and you're looking to get into futures. Really easy way to get a soft introduction into futures with little risk, right? So there's a ton of really, really good ways we can use that. Just remember, kind of like not putting your eggs in all the one basket. The thing you just need to be aware of is, I think maybe 6 months to a year ago, there was a lot of people who were thinking, you know what I mean, this funded trading account is going to be how I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? I'm going to trade this trading account and I'm going to be able to do this for the next 5-6 years. For some of that may be the case. But if you start to make too much money, you will likely start to encounter issues in the funded trading accounts. You know what I mean? Because there is a pool they're playing off of. They're not real accounts. So if you are looking to scale and get big over time, ideally you want to move towards proprietary, or you want to move towards retail. But I think using the funded account as a bridge, right, towards those kind of things. And so Wintro, you're talking about the reason why I left Apex. So I left Apex because I worked very hard. I got through an evaluation account. I started making money as a funded trader. I had a pretty good amount of money going in there, and then I requested my payout, and then they started my first one, actually, when they went through it, got denied because they said I was trading news events. And so my risk metric was too volatile. And that actually got my account closed the first time. And then my second one, because I evaled 2 accounts because my first one was closed due to the rule. And my second one, exactly, Bruce. And then my second one was an evaluation. And then when I went to get paid out, they came back to me and they said, okay, this looks good. Now, in order to get a payout, we want a video capture of you trading on that account with your face and with the account and with all of these varied things. And I don't know if, I'm sure if I went through it, I probably would have gotten a payout. I do know traders who got a payout. I really just got into this for the educational purposes. I've been a successful retail trader for 5 years. I mentor plenty of traders. I didn't need the account. You know what I mean? For me, I was kind of thinking kind of like you were saying before, not all your eggs in one basket, right? Might as well go ahead and load me up another account. You know what I mean? Just have some extra thing, right? Exactly the same thing with funded props. One of the reasons why I never went into proprietary, why I stuck with retail and wanted to be a retail, because I didn't want to give up, all of that. And then when the fundeds came out, I initially kind of thought maybe this is it, but it's really kind of becoming more like a proprietary, but a more accessible proprietary, right? Think about how hard it is to get into a proprietary. My goodness, most of them are invite only, right? And if you do manage to apply for one and get an interview, you have to go through some incredibly strict requirements. And on top of that, most proprietaries want you to be a company man or a company lady. You know what I mean by that? They want you to kind of walk the walk of the proprietary. They want you to have the same trading system as the proprietary. Their risk managers are going to really be, they want you to drink the proprietary Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? They want you doing their styles, the way they do things, and which is good. You find proprietaries you get, but again, very, very hands-on in the proprietary, right? So the fundeds offer you a proprietary feel without as much of the hands-on, right? They don't really care what strategy you're using. They're just going to put in trailing thresholds and other rules to make sure you don't do things too dangerously. You know what I mean? Which is their full prerogative. I have to kind of keep going back and into this, right? I'm giving pros and cons, but my intention is by no means to bag the process. I wouldn't bag online poker, right? I think online poker is a lot of fun, and a funded account is very similar to online poker. But you got to make sure you don't want to think you're trading actual stocks when you're really playing online poker, right? Because it's just important to be aware of the rules and the issues behind those. But again, they now offer Trader Live, which is basically is proprietary, right? So if you really prove yourself to do well in that instance, you may be able to be eligible for one of their Trader Lives. So and that's a whole thing. But again, lots of risk management, lots of other things. So one of the things that I've been doing, and I'll just kind of, with some of the traders I've been working with, is actually to use it. And I talked about this more in the beginning, as that bridge between going from sim. Sim is very, very difficult. But when you go live, you kind of get a new set of emotional issues that you didn't have in sim. So it's nice to bridge those two. The one other trap you have to be really, really careful about with the evaluation accounts, and I'm sure some of you are familiar in here will back me up on this one: resets. Right? So you actually can over risk with a funded account, which is many of the funded accounts, especially Apex. I don't know if Top Step, maybe Tro, you seem to be pretty well versed on Top Step. Do you know if Top Step has any restrictions towards how many times they'll let you reset an evaluation account in a given day? I had a trader message me or call me or at one point in time, he's like, dude, I lost my mind today. And he had reset his evaluation account like 8 times in one day. And it's only $35, right? But if you reset it 8 times, that was a lot of risk. You know what I'm saying? So I know Apex doesn't have any. Yeah, well, and so the dude's calling me like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I think I just maxed out my credit card, resetting accounts. You know what I mean? So it's not like using an evaluation account means you get to lose all of the emotional stuff because you're an evaluation. You still can blow up an evaluation account, and then they'll just let you reset it over and over and over and over again. So, and if you're going to do that, just be live, right? If you're going to lose $100 a day, let's go ahead and get in the market and learn how to do this. A lot of the times when I teach, I kind of equate it to learning. I played a lot of sport in high school, especially baseball. And it's like you can only spend so much time swinging in front of a batting machine. At some point in time, in order to really become a good batter, you got to have an adversary. In order to be a good stock trader, you need an adversary, and that's the market. You know what I mean? So you can really only stay in the batting cage for so long before you just need to get out there and do it. Right. But technically, when you go into an evaluation, their ability to reset actually negates some of the emotional, what would we call it? The emotional buffer that we were hoping that we would get. I still find the emotional trap is a little bit less, Josh, with some of the people that I work than the sim. But as you know, sim inherently has its own issues. Right? The issue of trading in sim is that there is no financial issue. So anytime there's an error in sim, there's only one thing you can focus on to blame, and that's you. Right? So in sim, some people end up really beating themselves up in sim. And when they're good at sim and they're actually doing well, often people will stay in sim for too long. Right? So they have a perfectly good working strategy, but because they hesitate to go live, they stay in sim and then actually work their way out of a good strategy, right? As long as they stay in sim, they just kind of keep adding stuff. Oh, I wasn't using VWAP. Now I'm using VWAP. Ooh, what's MACD? I'm going to add in MACD. Ooh, that's right. He's using head and shoulders patterns now. Maybe I'll try using a head and shoulders pattern. You were successful before. You're never using it before. And now you're doing that. You know what I mean? So sim has lots of issues. One of the reasons, by the way, I don't recommend trading in a live account and a sim account at the same time. If you're live, you should stay live. If you're in sim, you should stay in sim. When you're ready to switch, you should just switch, right? It's time, right? So, so again, funded's offering that nice bridge between the two. However, as Josh says, right, if you're going to do things like reset your account over and over and over again, then there will be clearly no edge emotionally, right? If you're doing something like that, at that point, you're just in a live account emotionally, right? So why not just get into a live account? Or at this point, and I think Josh would probably back me up, you probably need to get yourself back into sim. You know what I mean? If in a funded account, you're having so many emotional issues, we kind of make this analogy. This will probably be a little too uncouth in here, but whatever, we'll roll with it. You know, I grew up in Woodruff, South Carolina. So I'll code switch into my Southern accent real quick. I grew up in Woodruff, South Carolina, on the edge of a hog farm in a trailer. Right. So when you're doing out those things, you start getting really, really sure that the only thing you really are worried about, right? You're not worried about money. You're just worried about whether you're right or whether you're wrong, and which can create some major traps as far as your trading issues. And the analogy we kind of throw around in here, because I'm super country, right, is having these two people living in the trailer. They're just yelling and screaming at each other. And all of a sudden the wife walks up and she goes, you know what I think would bring things back together? I think we need a baby. You know what I mean? Having a baby, I think that would really unite our family and bring our family together. And then everything would be just fine. Right. And that's kind of like if you're having all kinds of emotional issues in sim and you're having all kinds of emotional issues trying to do a funded account, you know, don't spend your money on evaluation accounts yet and resetting accounts and doing all that stuff. Right. It's just you're displaying massive emotional issues in a non-stressful environment. Right. So until you can conquer the UVU challenge of being in sim, I wouldn't even worry about that. Now, another bonus to our eval accounts or our top steps and our apexes and these is you can get access to a platform, like I said before, and data and get into a sim account with a setup and everything. And you can do that like that. You can sit down, you can go on to one of these websites like Top Step, and within maybe an hour after their automated systems get done setting stuff up, you can download a platform, you can follow their instruction to get set up for it, and boom, you're in sim and you're going. And it's going to be way cheaper and way faster than trying to go out and find a broker that also offers a sim package, right? Paying data subscriptions to that broker. For instance, like if you're using DOS Trader Pro, even to trade with sim and to get data, if you have futures, you're still spending $300 to $350 a month, right? Just for sim and data. Right. So if you can get into one of these where with a save 80 or what, like through Apex or one of Top Steps or whatever, or if you go to Bearable Traders has it's bearabletraders.com/funded account. I think they're running half off right now on their platinum accounts. So which is a 3-month subscription, and it includes membership at BBT and access to like some of the training materials and stuff like that. And that's actually equity funded. But no proprietary option there, but BBT is linked in with Peak Capital. So if you do really well, you know, they'll probably try and scoop you up and try and talk you into going over and auditioning for Peak Capital. Which is a proprietary trading firm similar to SMB. Josh, what I tell people is that trading is a job. Go to work every day and get the job done. The job is not to make money. The job is to capture points with positive RVR focus. Yeah, I'm with you. You know what I mean? I think that sounds perfect. I couldn't agree more with that statement, Josh. You know, that's kind of a lot of the things like when people start learning to trade, right? They expect to sit down in like 2 weeks or a month, and all of a sudden they expect to be able to just make money. And you're like, well, you know, if you want to make $100,000 or $200,000 a year, do you know how long it takes a college grad after paying for all of their loans and getting their competency in their field? It will take just about any college grad in any field to start making that kind of money. You know what I mean? It takes you 4 years to 8 years through college. And then it probably takes you a year or two of competency easily before you start getting into that stuff, right? So, but as traders learning how to trade, we get all worried about losing a couple bucks a day, $30, $50 a day. And it's like, we're just paying tuition here, people. You know what I mean? So, but if you can stay focused and real about, you know, what the process is for doing that, that can really help curb that emotional issue that often comes from trading. You know what I mean? So win trope, that's 100%. So, and that's how the funded pool works. Right. You know what I mean? Especially everyone's going to sign up. Only a certain number of those people are going to win. Only a certain number of those, most of those people are going to lose. And as long as none of those winners start pulling too much of the pool, right, there's not a problem. right? I do know a couple of traders that requested very large payouts, and their response was, "Here's your money. Don't call us. We'll call you." You know what I mean? Because they burned out. They burned out the pool. Actually, with the Bear Bull Traders funded, Andrew Aziz, who's the the owner and lead trader there at Bear Bull Traders, also wrote a how to day trade for a living, which is one of the most popular trading books on Amazon. He'll actually clearly state out that their funded accounts are not to be considered for a long-term solution, that they are for basically a bridge between sim and going live or going to a proprietary of some sort. So cool, everybody. We got about 10 minutes left in my little session here, and I kind of covered through the main points, the pros and cons. So I'm just going to kind of keep my eye on the notes. I noticed we got a couple people typing. So anything else y'all want to talk about? Otherwise, I'm happy to kind of answer some questions, or we can just repartee for a few minutes. And yeah, we'll do that. So yeah, facts, Wind. Everyone's got a what do you call it? A pipeline. You know what I mean? Everyone's got a pipeline, whether it's, the broker deal, whether it's the data deal, whether it's selling courses, or, I got a pipeline, you know what I mean? I'm coming in here talking to you thinking maybe you go to pivotmasters.org and sign up for my mentoring. You know what I mean? We all got stuff we're in doing, to try and, move that stuff. And certainly BBT, like all the others, is going to, yeah, interactive brokers refer. I don't get any of those. Well, I actually got offered. I turned that down. It actually, I didn't like it. But so Wintro, now you know what I'm saying. So I actually turned that one down for that very reason. I am the traders that I work with. I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure. Well, you got to think in this instance, Wintro, it's the only method that actually makes sense. You know what I mean? You can't, if you're gonna, you could only really pay someone out. And I just didn't like it. So I chose not to participate, if that makes sense. But it's the only thing that really makes sense. You know what I mean? It's there, as people sign up for accounts, there's going to be a commission on signups you can get to come in. So the more money you can get to sign up, the better. You know what I mean? So I get it. It makes sense. Just for me, because I get paid pretty well by my mentees to help them learn how to trade. So for me, I felt like I would only be willing to take, and I asked them if they had an incentive-based program, which they don't offer. So I just abstained. But I understand why he's doing, and no, he's very honest about what he does and all of those things. So, and you're going to sign up for an IB account one way or the other. So, and not for nothing, I know this is kind of silly, but these gurus are putting in a lot of hard work organizing these very large systems and classes and things that are put together. And this is how they get paid. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously through trading as well, but Andrew's trading doesn't support the Bear Bull Traders trading community. Bear Bull Traders trading community is supported by Bear Bull Traders' trading community, which also includes obviously, referral stuff. If someone signs up for TradeZilla, for instance, I have a link for TradeZilla, so I get a percentage of that. But I specifically didn't agree with the IB one because I didn't want to profit. If my traders were losing money, I didn't want to make money. But I mean, they're going to pay me to teach them how to trade, whether they make money or not. So there's no perfect system in there. But I do agree. You know what I mean? There's a lot of this market, including these funded trading accounts. You know what I mean? Some of these are really pushing out there saying, hey, you can come use this for life. And then you've got some of them, obviously not all of them, right, that are not entirely genuine with that. You know what I mean? They put stuff on that. Hey, Rob, pleasure having you around, man. Thanks for the interaction and hanging out, and a sweet blue jacket you got there. Looks good on you. But yeah.
So Thor, maybe you can go through for us bookmap traders, maybe even with your Tesla example. how you may have traded differently, according to the pros and cons that you just had gone through, and kind of tips and tricks that may help you play the funded trader game a bit better
Oh,
for
sure.
payouts.
Yeah. So one of the key things that makes me a very successful trader is I am insanely good at processes. So if you have an opportunity to pick up my book, A Complete Day Trading System, you will notice it is broken down into a where, when, and how methodology. And so it isolates where to look for trades, when to take trades, and how to manage them. And pretty much mostly everything in between. So for instance, if you're looking at my screen right now, you can see here on Tesla on the Bookmap, notice how we have large orders that are tearing in here to the top side, but notice how our downside is quite lean, right? With a green CVD, the market maker is currently accumulating, right? So there's really no reason to expect this stock to reverse at this moment in time. Doesn't mean it's not going to reverse in 2 minutes from now, but right now this thing looks every bit headed to 355. Right. So similar to the way that happened this morning, and a lot of people don't understand that market makers. I happen to have quite a few friends that market make at Citadel, as well as I am fortunate to be kind of close with Peter Tuchman and his son and a couple of other people, names you might recognize off the market. One of the things that is really important in my trading process is a fairly deep knowledge of how market makers make markets and how they move up and down through them. So right now the market maker is accumulating. So what a lot of people don't understand is when these big green dots are going up, that's the market maker, right? It's the market maker is buying right now, and they're accumulating because they intend to distribute those orders later. Now, there's a big difference between selling and distribution. When market makers start to distribute, they bring in the buy orders. So what you will see, I believe y'all probably know it this way. I call it a book flip. But what you'll see is as we get up here and we hold up here, you will see limit orders start being brought into the downside. And that's because the market maker actually has buyers and sellers at the same exact price, right? And the market maker will do the first leg by accumulating up through the sellers, and then will distribute through the buyers in the second leg, right? So when market makers consolidate, that's because the market traffic that's coming in is ample enough, right? Enough retail volume that the market maker can distribute while consolidating. So they can actually hold at the price and move straight from the seller to the buyer, and they don't need to retrace. And you'll notice this happens because a lack of bids or an order void is created on the book. So as we continue accumulating up the book, as long as there's still an order void below the book, there's really no reasonable expectation for it to reverse. Right. So let's see. Whole week has been awesome. Distribute, bringing in buy orders, limit orders brought to the downside, accumulating through sellers towards the buy. Yep. So accumulate through sellers, distribute through buyers, right? There is a difference between buying and selling, right? Versus accumulating and distributing. We buy and sell, they accumulate and distribute. You know what I mean? So it's really in tune. So now look to the top side above 355. See how lean the order book is to the top side now? So there's a lot of distance between 360 and 355. So they'll probably stall out here and start to consolidate. And you can watch the order book. If they bring more orders to the top side and they don't bring in selling volume, there's a good chance they're going to continue accumulating towards 360, right? If they stall here and the volume drops and you notice bids start getting brought in higher number and quantity, there's a good chance they're preparing to distribute. Now you need to wait for a VPA signal, right? So volume and price analysis, for those who don't catch VPA, we're talking Wyckoff, Livermore, Anna Cooling, Richard Ney from like the, from the 70s, Humphrey Neal from the 20s, 1920s, not 2020s. Right. So we're talking about all the same stuff here. So if you can load in and understand the market making movement and then put that in with a very precise process, right, then you can start laying in some really nice trades. Like when I had the Tesla trade, which I showed at the beginning, where we actually set this high, swept the high, and then I went short right off of the 343.50 and hit a target as we came back down into PDC. I can show that. You can see that right here. right? I then thought we were actually going to roll one more time. We came off of this. I went ahead and went short again, and then I lost that one. So I stopped the day. I risked $250 on every trade I take. So this was a $1,000 winner, and this was a $250 loser. And I used equalized risk hotkeys in order to manage that. Right. So today I'm closing out the day. It's at approximately 750 outside of comms. And I did that while I was actually in an audio meeting going over audio and slideshows with Bruce in the thing before we got here. So it's 11 o'clock, everybody. And I actually have to run over to Bear Bull Traders because I have a 1-hour mentoring session that I do every single day in Bear Bull Traders. Except for Thursdays. So for any of y'all in here that are Bear Bull Traders members, I'll see y'all over there. And for everybody in here, again, thank you so much to Bruce and team for having me by to present. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again in the future. If any of y'all have any questions, again, earlier in the presentation, I listed my email. You can also find me at pivotmasters.org or bearbulltraders.com. If y'all need anything, let me know. Again, much love to everybody. Keep it green and have a great one. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Thor.
Thank you, sir.